The lunch rush at Vesper and Pine had reached its crescendo, that golden hour between 1 and 2 when the dining room became a symphony of clinking silverware, murmured conversations, and the soft jazz that poured from speakers hidden in crown molding. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching dust motes that danced like tiny stars above white tablecloths. The restaurant occupied a corner of Manhattan's financial district, where glass towers touched clouds, and every square foot cost more than most people earned in a year. Maya Rodriguez moved through the chaos with practiced grace, her black apron tied tight around a waist that had grown thinner over the past 6 months. She balanced 3 plates along her left arm, seared duck breast, wild mushroom risotto, and the restaurant's signature herb-crusted lamb, while her right hand steadied a 4th. Table 14. The couple who'd been waiting 18 minutes, though it felt like 18 hours under the weight of their increasingly pointed glances. "I'm so sorry for the wait," Maya said, setting down each plate with care that bordered on reverence. The duck's skin glistened under the ambient lighting, perfectly crisped, garnished with microgreens that cost more per ounce than gold. The chef had to remake the risotto twice to get the consistency exactly right. "Please let me know if there's anything else I can bring you." The woman, blonde, diamonds in her throat, that particular shade of tan that came from winter homes in warmer climates, didn't look up from her phone. Her companion, silver-haired and sharp-suited, nodded curtly. Maya had learned to read the language of dismissal in 1,000 tiny gestures. She turned back toward the kitchen, already mentally calculating her next moves. Table 7 needed water refills. Table 9's appetizer should be up any moment. Table 12, the Billionaire's table, would need attention soon. Marcus Chen stood at the host stand, his expression a mask of professional calm that Maya had learned to decode over their 3 years working together. The tight set of his jaw meant trouble. The way his fingers drummed against the leather-bound reservation book meant that trouble was approaching fast. "Table 12 is asking for you," Marcus said quietly as Maya passed. "He seems agitated." Maya's stomach tightened. Table 12, Sebastian Blackwood. She'd recognize that name anywhere. It appeared on buildings, on business news channels, in the society pages her mother used to clip and save, back when they'd both believed in fairy tales. The man had a net worth that required scientific motation to express, and a reputation for treating service staff like particularly disappointing furniture. She approached his table with her customer service smile firmly in place, the one she'd perfected over 7 years in the restaurant industry. Sebastian Blackwood sat alone at a foretop by the window, his charcoal suit probably worth more than her car. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 40s maybe, with sharp features and eyes that assessed everything with the cold calculation of someone who saw the world as a spreadsheet to be optimized. "Good afternoon, Mr. Blackwood. How can I help you?" He didn't look up from his phone. "I ordered 23 minutes ago." "Yes, sir. Your Dover sole is being plated right now. It should be out within 23 minutes. He finally raised his eyes to meet hers, and Maya felt the temperature drop. "Do you understand what my time is worth? Every minute I spend waiting in this establishment costs more than you make in a month." The dining room seemed to grow quieter, though perhaps that was just Maya's heightened awareness of the dozen other tables now tuning into their conversation, like an audience settling into a theater seat. Her fingers had begun to tremble, so she clasped them behind her back. She thought of her daughter Sophia, 8 years old and waiting at her grandmother's apartment for Maya to finish her double shift. She thought of the medical bills stacked on her kitchen counter, her mother's cancer treatments that insurance covered with all enthusiasm of a miser parting with gold. She thought of the 3 job applications she'd submitted that morning before her shift started, and the 12 she'd submitted the week before, and the endless parade of rejections that arrived with mechanical regularity. "Sir, I apologize if I gave that impression. I'm doing my best to provide excellent service to all our guests." "Your best." Sebastian leaned back in his chair, a king on a throne passing judgment. "Tell me something. How long have you worked here?" The question felt like a trap, but Maya answered anyway. 3 years, sir."
3 years, and you're still just a waitress? No ambition to move up? No drive to be something more? He picked up his water glass, examined it as if looking for imperfections, set it down without drinking. "That tells me everything I need to know about your work ethic. People like you, You're content to drift through life, taking up space, moving slowly because you have nowhere important to be. The words hit like physical blows, each one landing in the tender spaces where Maya already doubted herself. She wanted to tell him about the online business courses she took after Sophia went to bed, about the prototype she'd been developing in her spare moments, a scheduling app for small restaurants that could revolutionize how they manage staff and inventory, about the dreams that kept her awake at night, vivid and vast and just out of reach. Instead, she said, "Your Dover Sole will be right out, sir." But Sebastian Blackwood wasn't finished. He raised his hand, and Maya watched in slow-motion horror as he snapped his fingers, actually snapped them, like summoning a dog, to get the attention of Gerald Hastings, Vesper and Pine's general manager. Gerald materialized from his office like a genie from a lamp, all obsequious smiles and nervous energy. "Mr. Blackwood, is everything all right?" "No." Sebastian gestured toward Maya, as if she were Exhibit A in a trial. "This waitress has been providing substandard service, slow, inattentive, unprofessional. I come to Vesper and Pine because I expect excellence. What I'm receiving is mediocrity." Gerald's face cycled through several expressions: concern, calculation, capitulation. Maya had seen this dance before. The customer was always right, but some customers were more right than others, and billionaires who could fill a restaurant with a single recommendation or empty it with a disparaging tweet occupied a category beyond right. They were inevitable, like gravity or death. "I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Blackwood. Maya, perhaps you should take your break early." "She shouldn't take a break." Sebastian's voice cut through the air like a knife through silk. "She should be fired." The dining room had gone completely silent now. Even the jazz had seemed to fade, though that might have been Maya's imagination. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, the weight of their attention pressing down like a physical force. In the kitchen doorway, she glimpsed Chef Antoine, his face twisted in sympathetic fury. Near the host stand, Marcus had gone pale. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm sure we can resolve this," Gerald began. "Fire her, or I'll make certain that every person in my network knows that Vesper and Pine tolerates incompetent staff. I'll ensure that your Michelin star becomes a memory. I'll personally fund a competing restaurant across the street and staff it with people who understand that time is money and service is an art form that requires more than just showing up." Gerald's face had drained of color. He looked at Maya, and in his eyes he saw the apology that his mouth would never form. "Maya, I think perhaps it would be best if you collected your things." The words didn't feel real at first. They floated in the air like soap bubbles, pretty and impossible and destined to pop. Maya had been fired from jobs before: the coffee shop that closed during the recession, the catering company that downsized when they lost their major contract, but never like this. Never because a man with more money than some countries decided she moved too slowly through the world. "You're firing me," Maya heard her own voice from a great distance. "Right now? In front of everyone?" "I'm sorry," Gerald said, and he probably even meant it in the way that people mean things when they're costing nothing. "But Mr. Blackwood is one of our most valued clients, and we need to demonstrate that we take his feedback seriously." Sebastian Blackwood had already returned his attention to his phone, the matter settled in his mind. He'd identified a problem, eliminated it, and moved on to the next item on his agenda. Maya was just a line item, a minor adjustment in the vast equation of his day. She untied her apron with fingers that felt numb and strange. Her tip book fell to the floor, and bills scattered, ones and fives, and a single 20 from a generous couple celebrating their anniversary. Marcus rushed over to help her gather them, his hands shaking as badly as hers. "This is bullshit," Marcus whispered fiercely. "Complete bullshit. Maya, you're the best server here. Everyone knows it." "It doesn't matter what everyone knows," Maya said. The words came out steadier than she felt. "It matters what he thinks." She walked toward the back, past tables full of people who suddenly found their meals fascinating. Some wouldn't meet her eyes. Others watched with the guilty fascination of witnesses to an accident. At table 7, the elderly woman who always requested Maya's section reached out and squeezed her hand as she passed.
"Chin up, sweetheart," the woman murmured. "God has a plan." In the break room, Maya's belongings occupied a single small locker. Her purse, her phone with its cracked screen, a cardigan Sophia had chosen for her birthday because it matches your eyes, Mama. She'd bought her daughter's favorite ice cream with her last paycheck, and now there wouldn't be another paycheck. Not for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer if she couldn't find something fast. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from her mother's number. Maya didn't listen to the voicemails. She couldn't, not yet. Not when her voice might crack and break and reveal just how close she was to shattering. The back door of Vesper and Pine opened onto an alley that smelled of grease and garbage and broken dreams. Maya stood there for a long moment, letting the October wind cut through her thin work shirt. Above her, the Manhattan skyline stretched toward heaven, towers of glass and steel that housed the Sebastian Blackwoods of the world, men who moved through life so quickly they never saw the people they trampled, men who confused wealth with worth and power with righteousness. She thought about going back inside, thought about marching up to table 12 and telling Sebastian Blackwood exactly what she thought of him, consequences be damned. But consequences were all she had left to lose. And Sophia needed her mother functional, not self-righteously unemployed. So Maya Rodriguez walked away from Vesper and Pine for what she believed was the last time. She walked past the bistro where she'd applied for a hostess position, past the boutique where she'd once dreamed of shopping without checking price tags, past the subway entrance that would take her back to Washington Heights and the 2-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother and daughter. She didn't cry, not yet. She'd save the crying for later, for the privacy of her shower where Sophia wouldn't hear. For now, she moved through the city streets with her head high and her fists clenched tight around her phone. By the time she reached the subway platform, Maya had already started planning. But before I continue with Maya's story, if you've made it this far, this story takes time and effort to craft. A quick like, share, or subscribe really helps support more stories like this. Now back to Maya. Firing wasn't the end. It was just another beginning. Another chapter in a story that refused to conclude with her defeat. She pulled up her laptop files on her phone, the business plan she'd been refining for 2 years, the market research she'd compiled in stolen moments between shifts, the prototype of her scheduling app that was nearly ready for beta testing. She had $700 in her savings account. She had a daughter who believed her mother could do anything. She had a dream that had been deferred so long it had calcified into something harder and more determined than mere hope. The train arrived in a rush of hot wind and mechanical thunder. Maya stepped aboard and found a seat between a sleeping man in a stained coat and a teenager lost in music from oversized headphones. Through the scratched window, she watched the city blur past, all those buildings full of people who didn't know her name or care about her story. But they would. Someday, somehow, they would. The phone in her pocket buzzed. A text from Marcus. "That was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. Are you okay?" Maya typed back, "I will be." Another buzz, this time from Chef Antone. "That man is a monster. You deserved better. We all know you deserved better." And then a third message from a number she didn't recognize. "This is Elena from Table 7. Marcus gave me your number. I own a small consulting firm. If you need a reference or help finding something new, please call me. What happened today was unconscionable." Maya stared at that last message for a long time. Kindness from strangers. Support from colleagues who'd become friends. Evidence that not everyone in the world operated like Sebastian Blackwood, crushing people beneath the wheels of their ambition without a backward glance. She looked at her reflection in the train window. A tired woman with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin, still wearing the work shirt that had been her uniform just an hour ago. She looked like someone who'd been defeated. But appearances, Maya had learned, were the least reliable truth. By the time she reached her stop, the plan had crystallized. She would file for unemployment because pride didn't pay the bills. She would update her resume and send out applications because Sophia needed dinner and health insurance. But in the hours between job hunting and mother duties, in the quiet spaces of night when the city slept and she worked alone at her kitchen table, Maya would build something new. She would take every slight, every dismissal, every moment of being invisible and underestimated, and she would forge them into fuel. Sebastian Blackwood thought he'd eliminated a problem, but what he'd actually done was create one.
Maya climbed the stairs out of the subway into the afternoon light of Washington Heights, her neighborhood with its bodega groceries and the sound of music drifting from open windows, her world small and contained and precious. She passed Mrs. Chen's laundromat where she'd worked briefly after high school. She passed the library where Sophia spent hours drawing pictures of buildings and bridges. She passed the corner where her father used to buy flowers for her mother every Friday night, back before the accident that had redefined their family's story. By the time Maya reached her building, her hands had stopped shaking. By the time she climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, her breathing had steadied. By the time she opened a door to find Sophia doing homework at the kitchen table and her mother dozing in the armchair by the window, Maya had already begun to transform. Not into someone new, into someone she'd always been beneath the surface, waiting for the right, wrong moment to emerge. The morning after her firing, Maya woke at 5:30 out of habit, her body conditioned by years of early shifts. For 3 disorienting seconds, she believed she needed to get ready for work. Then reality crashed over her like cold water, and she lay staring at the ceiling where a crack had spread like a river delta, mapping the building's slow surrender to time. Sophia slept in the twin bed across their shared room, one arm flung over her head, her dark hair spread across a pillow decorated with cartoon astronauts. Maya's daughter wanted to be an engineer when she grew up. Not the vague aspiration of childhood, but a focused dream supported by straight-A report cards and a desk drawer full of sketches showing bridges that defied gravity and buildings that touched the clouds. She'd inherited her grandmother's mathematical mind and her grandfather's artistic vision, and Maya was determined that her daughter's dreams wouldn't be deferred the way her own had been. But determination didn't pay the rent, which was due in 12 days. Maya eased out of bed and padded to the kitchen, where her mother had already started coffee. Rosa Rodriguez sat at the small table, wrapped in a robe that had seen better decades, her head covered by a colorful scarf that hid the effects of chemotherapy. She'd been beautiful once. Maya had seen the photographs, the young woman with luminous skin and eyes that promised mischief. Cancer had stolen some of that beauty, but not the steel in her spine. "You're up early for someone who doesn't have to be," Rosa said without preamble. "Couldn't sleep." Maya poured coffee into a mug that proclaimed "World's Best Mom," a Mother's Day gift from Sophia 3 years ago. The handle had been glued back on twice. "How are you feeling?" "Like I have cancer, but I had cancer yesterday too, so at least I'm consistent." Rosa's dark humor about her illness had taken Maya months to accept. Now she understood it was armor, protection against the terror of dying before seeing her granddaughter graduate high school. "Sit down. Tell me what you're going to do." Maya sat. Outside the window, Washington Heights was waking up, the scrape of metal gates being raised, the first bus rumbling past, someone's radio playing salsa music that drifted through the pre-dawn air. She'd grown up 3 blocks from here, in an apartment even smaller than this one, back when her father had been alive and the world had seemed full of possibilities that didn't require checking price tags. "I'm going to file for unemployment today, update my resume, call every contact I have in the restaurant industry." Maya wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, stealing its warmth. "Marcus said there might be an opening at Piccolo's, but it's part-time and no benefits." "That's the survival plan. What about the living plan?" Maya met her mother's eyes and something passed between them, an understanding built over years of making impossible choices and somehow surviving them. Rosa knew about the business plan. She'd helped Maya workshop ideas at this very table, applying the accounting skills she'd learned before marriage and motherhood had redirected her path. She'd been the first person Maya had told about the app prototype, had celebrated when the first version actually worked without crashing. "I need seed money," Maya said quietly. "Enough to hire a developer to polish the app, to pay for proper user testing, to get it in front of restaurant owners who might actually use it. I've run the numbers 100 times. With $50,000 I could launch properly,
maybe even quit the restaurant industry entirely within a year. And how do you plan to get $50,000? I don't know. The admission hurt like a pulled tooth. Small business loans require collateral I don't have. Investors want to see traction, but I can't get traction without money to develop the product properly. It's the same circle that's kept me trapped for 2 years. Rosa sipped her coffee, watching her daughter with eyes that missed nothing. You know what your father would say right now? When the door closes, you check if there's a window. Or, if you're strong enough, you just make a new door. Rafael was a dreamer, but he was also a realist. He worked 3 jobs to save money for the restaurant he wanted to open. He died before that dream came true, but he never stopped believing it would. Rosa reached across the table and gripped Maya's hand. You have his fire, mija, but fire without direction just burns everything down.
They sat in comfortable silence until Sophia emerged from the bedroom, sleep-rumpled and already asking mathematical questions about the probability of rain based on the previous week's weather patterns. Maya made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy, but made with the kind of care that said, I love you without requiring words, and helped her daughter get ready for school. Walking Sophia to PS 175 was Maya's favorite part of most mornings. 2 blocks through their neighborhood, past the bodega where Mr. Martinez always saved the day-old pastries for them, past the community garden where tomatoes grew in defiance of city concrete, past the church where Maya had been baptized and later married before divorce had added its own scars to her story. Mom? Sophia took her hand as they waited for a traffic light. Why didn't you go to work today? Maya had planned this conversation, had rehearsed various versions in her mind, but standing on a street corner with her daughter looking up at her with complete trust, the prepared words felt inadequate. I had a disagreement with my boss yesterday, Maya said carefully, so I'm going to find a new job, a better one. Was it about you being slow? Sophia's voice held genuine curiosity, no judgment. Because you're not slow. You're actually really fast. I've watched you cook dinner while helping me with homework and texting Abuela about her appointment, all at the same time. That's like professional multitasking. Thank you, baby. But the important thing is, this gives me a chance to think about what I really want to do. Maybe try something new. Like your app? Sophia's eyes lit up. They'd reached the school's front entrance, where other children streamed through doors covered in construction paper leaves and motivational posters. You should definitely do the app. You've been working on it forever, and it's really good. You think so? I know so. Mrs. Chen says you're the smartest person she knows, and she's known lots of people because of the laundromat. Sophia adjusted her backpack. Plus, if you become super successful with the app, maybe we could get the bigger apartment with 2 bedrooms. I love Abuela, but sometimes I want to listen to music without worrying about keeping her awake. Maya kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo Sophia insisted on using. Have a good day at school. Learn something amazing. I always do, Sophia said with the confidence of 8-year-olds who haven't yet learned to doubt themselves. She disappeared into the stream of children, and Maya stood watching until she couldn't pick out her daughter's purple jacket anymore. The walk back to the apartment felt longer without Sophia's chatter. Maya's phone buzzed constantly. Texts from former coworkers expressing outrage, an email from Alina at Table 7 repeating her offer of help, 3 messages from Marcus that ranged from supportive to furious on her behalf, but no messages from potential employers, no callbacks from the applications she'd submitted over the past months. At home, Rosa had laid out Maya's laptop on the kitchen table along with a legal pad and 3 pens. Okay, her mother said, let's be strategic. You need immediate income and long-term sustainability. 2 parallel tracks. Show me what you're working with. They spent the next 4 hours building a battle plan. Maya created a spreadsheet, 1 column for immediate job prospects, another for long-term business development. She updated her resume, emphasizing skills that translate beyond restaurant work: customer service, conflict resolution, inventory management, staff coordination. She drafted a cover letter that somehow made "fired for being slow" sound like seeking new opportunities for growth. By noon, she'd submitted 8 applications to restaurants, hotels, a catering company, and a corporate dining service. By 2 p.m., she'd created a detailed 30-day plan for refining her app prototype. By 3 p.m., exhaustion had settled into her bones, and she allowed herself to lie down on the couch for just a moment. She woke to Sophia's hand shaking her shoulder and the smell of something burning. Maya bolted upright, momentarily disoriented, to find her daughter standing over her with concern etched on her young face. Abuela tried to make dinner, but she got dizzy. The rice is kind of crispy. Maya found Rosa sitting at the kitchen table, looking pale and shaken. The pot on the stove held what had once been rice and was now a blackened mass smoking slightly at the edges. Maya turned off the heat, opened windows, and then sat beside her mother. "I just got tired," Rosa said quietly. "One minute I was stirring rice, the next I was sitting down and everything was spinning." "We should call Dr. Patel." "It's a side effect. He already told me this might happen." Rosa's voice carried an edge of frustration that Maya recognized, the anger of someone watching their own body betray them. "I'm just annoyed." Maya ordered pizza, a luxury they couldn't afford, but sometimes necessity trumped budgets, and the 3 of them ate together at the kitchen table that had witnessed so many family meals. Sophia talked about school, about the math problem that had stumped even her teacher, about the boy named Marcus who'd pulled her hair and then apologized with a chocolate bar that he'd bought with his own allowance. "That's weird, right? Like, why pull my hair if you like me? Why not just say you like me?" "People are complicated," Maya said. "Sometimes they don't know how to express what they feel, so they do strange things instead." "Adults do that too," Sophia observed with the unsettling wisdom of children who pay attention. "Like yesterday, when you came home and said everything was fine, but then I heard you crying in the shower." Maya exchanged a glance with Rosa, who shrugged as if to say, "I told you she notices everything." "You're right," Maya admitted. "I wasn't fine yesterday. I was sad and angry and scared, but I'm working on making things better." "I know," Sophia said simply. "You always do." After dinner, after Sophia had finished homework and Rosa had retreated to her room to rest, Maya opened her laptop and looked at the things she'd been avoiding all day. Sebastian Blackwood's digital footprint. He was everywhere, of course. Forbes articles about his investment strategies, Wall Street Journal profiles of his venture capital firm, Society page photographs of him at charity galas, always with a different beautiful woman on his arm, always wearing the same expression of calculated disinterest. He'd made his first million at 26 with a tech startup that streamlined corporate communications. His second million had come 6 months later. By 30, he'd been worth more than most small nations. The articles painted him as a genius, a visionary, a titan of industry who'd revolutionized 3 separate sectors through pure brilliance and ruthless efficiency. They used words like demanding and exacting and uncompromising. They never used words like cruel or heartless or the kind of man who fires waitresses for sport. Maya read interview after interview looking for something. She wasn't sure what. Evidence of humanity, maybe? Some indication that beneath the billion-dollar portfolio lived an actual person capable of empathy or regret. But Sebastian Blackwood presented the same face in every article. Cool, controlled, certain of his own rightness in a way that seemed almost pathological. One particular interview caught her attention, published in a business magazine 3 months ago. The reporter had asked about his philosophy toward employees and business relationships. "I believe in meritocracy," Blackwood had said. "The best rise, the rest fall away. If you can't keep up, you don't deserve to play the game. Sentiment is the enemy of excellence. The moment you start making exceptions, the moment you let emotion override logic, you've already lost." Maya read those words 3 times, feeling them settle like stones in her stomach. This was the man who'd casually destroyed her livelihood. This was the man who believed kindness was weakness and efficiency was virtue.
This was the man who moved through the world so quickly he never noticed the damage left in his wake. But he would notice her. Eventually, somehow, he would notice. She opened the file containing her app prototype. The interface was clean and intuitive, designed to solve a problem she knew intimately. Restaurant scheduling was chaos. Managers juggled availability, shift preferences, coverage needs, labor costs, and employee requests using a patchwork of spreadsheets, text messages, and prayer. Her app, she'd named it Seamless Shift, could do it all automatically, learning patterns, predicting needs, optimizing schedules while respecting worker preferences. She'd built the first version herself using code she'd learned from free online courses. But to make it professional, to make it something restaurants would actually pay for, she needed help. She needed a skilled developer, a designer, money for testing and marketing, and all the 1,000 invisible costs of bringing a dream to life. $50,000. That was the number that stood between her current reality and the future she could taste. It might as well have been 50 million. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Good news. Piccolo's wants to interview you tomorrow, 11 a.m. It's not much, but it's something. She typed back. Thank you. I'll take it. Another text, this one from Elena. I've been thinking about our conversation. Would you be open to meeting for coffee? I might have some ideas. Maya stared at that message for a long time. Elena was a stranger who'd witnessed her public humiliation and decided to help anyway. The world contained Sebastian Blackwood's, but it also contained Elena's. The trick was figuring out which outnumbered which. Coffee would be great, Maya replied. When and where? They made plans for Friday morning. Maya closed her laptop and sat in the quiet apartment, listening to the sounds of the city through thin walls. Someone's television too loud, a couple arguing in Spanish, a baby crying, a dog barking. All the noise of lives being lived in close proximity.
She thought about her father, Raphael, who died when she was 17. A construction accident, sudden and senseless and final. He'd been saving money for a restaurant, and after his death, Maya's mother had used that money to pay for his funeral instead. Dreams dying with their dreamers, as they so often did. But Maya was still here. Sophia was still here. Rosa was fighting cancer with the same determination she'd brought to every battle in her life. They were still here, which meant the story wasn't over. Maya pulled out the legal pad and started writing. Not a business plan this time, but something else. A list of everything Sebastian Blackwood had taken from her. Her job, her immediate income, her sense of security, her dignity in that moment when he'd snapped his fingers like she was a dog to be commanded. She wrote it all down, every small and large humiliation, until her hand cramped and the page was full. Then she turned to a fresh page and wrote something else, a list of everything he didn't know about her. Her resilience, her intelligence, her ability to survive on determination when hope ran out. Her network of people who cared about her not because of what she could do for them, but because of who she was. Her daughter who believed she could do anything. Her mother who refused to let cancer be the final word in her story. Sebastian Blackwood had seen a slow waitress. He hadn't seen Maya Rodriguez at all. That, Maya thought, was going to be his first mistake. And in the world of business he'd built his empire on, first mistakes were often fatal. She stood and walked to the window, looking out over Washington Heights. Somewhere in this city, Sebastian Blackwood was probably sleeping in a penthouse apartment with a view that cost more per month than Maya would earn in a year. He'd forgotten her by now, if he'd ever really seen her in the first place. But Maya would remember him. And one day, she didn't know when, didn't know how, but she believed it with a certainty that felt like the truth. One day she would walk back into his life, and this time she wouldn't be invisible. This time, he would see her coming. The interview at Piccolo's lasted 12 minutes. The owner, a thick-necked man named Vincent, who smelled of garlic and cigarettes, looked at Maya's resume and frowned. 3 years at Vesper and Pine, and you're looking for part-time work at a place like this? Vincent's restaurant occupied a corner storefront in the East Village, the kind of establishment that survived on consistent mediocrity and cheap lunch specials. What's the story? Maya had prepared several versions of the truth. She went with the one that felt least like begging. I'm pursuing other opportunities and need flexible hours, but I have extensive experience and excellent references. Gerald Hastings says you were let go for performance issues. Vincent set the resume down, and Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. Gerald had given her a bad reference. The man had fired her to appease a billionaire's tantrum, and now he was ensuring she couldn't find work elsewhere. It wasn't performance issues. Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. There was an incident with a difficult customer. I was caught in the middle of a situation that had nothing to do with my actual work. Look, I don't need drama. I need someone who shows up, does the job, doesn't cause problems. Vincent stood, the interview clearly over. I'll keep your resume on file. The universal brush-off. Maya left Piccolo's and stood on the sidewalk, watching lunch crowds flow past. She'd been in the restaurant industry long enough to know what "I'll keep your resume on file" meant. It meant no. It meant Gerald's words carried more weight than her 3 years of excellent service. It meant the system protected men like Sebastian Blackwood while grinding women like her beneath its wheels. Her phone showed 11:30. The coffee meeting with Elena was at 1. Maya had 2 hours to kill and nowhere to go, so she walked. Through the East Village with its vintage shops and overpriced cafes, across to Union Square where street performers competed for tourist dollars, down to the financial district where glass towers scraped clouds and everyone moved with the urgent purpose of people whose time was worth money. She found herself standing outside Vesper and Pine, looking through the windows at the lunch service in full swing. Her former colleagues moved through the dining room with practiced efficiency. Gerald glad-handed customers at the host stand. And there, at his usual table by the window, sat Sebastian Blackwood. Maya's breath caught. He looked exactly as he had 3 days ago. Expensive suit, phone in hand, that same expression of calculated disinterest. As if he had not destroyed someone's life, as if Maya had been a momentary irritation, a fly swatted and forgotten. She stood there for a long moment, watching him through glass. He never looked up, never sensed her presence. Why would he? She was nothing to him. She had never been anything to him except an inconvenience, a problem solved with a snap of his fingers. Maya turned away and kept walking, fury burning in her chest like swallowed fire.
The coffee shop where she'd agreed to meet Elena occupied a quiet corner in Tribeca, the kind of place where lattes cost $8 and came decorated with fomite. Maya arrived 15 minutes early and ordered black coffee, unable to justify spending more when her bank account showed $643 and dropping. Elena arrived precisely at 1, dressed in a crisp blazer and carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Maya's entire outfit. But her smile was warm, and when she hugged Maya like they were old friends instead of strangers connected by a single terrible moment, something in Maya's chest loosened. "Thank you for coming," Elena said, settling into the chair across from her. "I've been thinking about you constantly since Tuesday. What happened was grotesque." "It was business," Maya said, though the words tasted like ash. "Sebastian Blackwood is an important client. I was expendable. That's how the world works. That's how the world works when we let men like Sebastian Blackwood define the rules." Elena pulled a folder from her portfolio. "I did some research on him after that lunch. Did you know he's been sued 14 times by former employees? Sexual harassment, hostile work environment, wrongful termination? The list goes on. He settles every case with non-disclosure agreements and enough money that people agree to stay silent." Maya's hands tightened around her coffee cup. "So he does this regularly, destroys people and pays to cover it up." "Regularly enough that it's a pattern. His company, Blackwood Ventures, has a reputation in certain circles. Brilliant investments, ruthless culture, high turnover. People burn out or get pushed out, and new hungry candidates line up to replace them because the prestige is worth the cost." Elena leaned forward. "But here's the thing. Patterns can be disrupted. Reputations can change.
And you strike me as someone who isn't going to accept what happened and quietly disappear. What makes you think that? Because I saw your face when he was humiliating you. You weren't just hurt or angry. You were calculating. I recognize that look because I see it in my mirror every morning. Elena opened the folder, revealing what looked like a business plan. I run a consulting firm that helps women-owned businesses secure funding and mentorship. We're small, just me and 3 associates, but we're effective. I looked you up after our encounter, found your LinkedIn profile, your business plan for Seamless Shift that you posted in an entrepreneur's forum 8 months ago. Maya's heat rose to her cheeks. That forum post had been a moment of weakness, a desperate attempt to get feedback from strangers when everyone she knew had told her the app was too niche, too complicated, too expensive to develop properly. I read your plan, Elena continued. It's brilliant. The restaurant industry is bleeding money on inefficient scheduling, and you've identified a solution that's both elegant and practical. But you can't get funding because you don't have the right connections or the right background. You're a waitress with a dream, and investors don't take that seriously. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting a partnership. My firm helps you develop Seamless Shift properly. We connect you with angel investors, help you build a pitch deck, guide you through the fundraising process. In exchange, we take a small percentage of equity, enough to make it worth our time, but not so much that you lose control of your vision. Maya stared at Elena, looking for the catch. There was always a catch. Why would you do this? You don't know me. We met once, for less than 5 minutes. Because I was you 12 years ago. I was a paralegal at a prestigious law firm, made the mistake of rejecting the advances of a senior partner, got fired for supposedly filing documents incorrectly, files I'd never touched. Couldn't get another legal job because the senior partner's reputation followed me everywhere. I spent 2 years rebuilding from nothing, and I swore that if I ever got to a position where I could help someone else, I would. She slid a business card across the table. This is my offer. Think about it. If you decide you want to move forward, call me. We'll set up a meeting with my associates, review your business plan in detail, and create a strategy. No guarantees. Raising capital is always hard, but at least you'd have a fighting chance. Maya picked up the card, running her thumb over the embossed letters. Elena Vasquez, Managing Partner, Cornerstone Consulting. A phone number, an email address, a lifeline thrown by a stranger who understood exactly how deep the water was. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Say you won't let what happened to Sebastian Blackwood define the rest of your life. Elena finished her coffee and stood. I have to get back to the office. But Maya, whatever you decide, don't let them make you small. The world is full of people who will try to shrink you down to a size they can control. The secret is refusing to fit in boxes they design. After Elena left, Maya sat alone in the coffee shop for another hour, staring at the business card like it might disappear if she looked away. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. How did the interview go? Maya typed back, not great, but something else happened. Something that might be good. I'll explain tonight. She spent the rest of the afternoon in the New York Public Library, using the free computers to research Elena's firm. Cornerstone Consulting was legitimate, a small operation with an impressive client list of women-owned businesses that had successfully scaled from startup to established companies. Elena herself had a background in corporate law before founding her firm. Everything checked out. But still, Maya hesitated. Partnership meant giving up equity, meant trusting strangers with a dream she'd protected so carefully. It meant exposing herself to failure in a way that working alone never had. If she tried and failed by herself, that was one thing. If she tried with help and still failed, that meant the dream itself had been flawed from the beginning. She walked home slowly, watching the city transform from business district to residential neighborhoods, from glass towers to brick buildings with laundry hanging from fire escapes. By the time she reached her building, Rush hour had clogged the streets with people returning from jobs they might hate but couldn't afford to lose. Sophia was at the kitchen table doing homework when Maya walked in. Rosa stood at the stove, moving slowly but deliberately, making arroz con pollo that filled the apartment with the smell of home. "Interview?" Rosa asked without turning around. "Gerald gave me a bad reference. The owner practically threw me out." Maya dropped her bag on the couch and joined Sophia at the table. "But I had coffee with Elena, the woman from the restaurant. She wants to help me develop Seamless Shift. She runs a consulting firm that works with women entrepreneurs." "And what does she want in return?" "Equity. A percentage of the company, and probably a share of profits if we're successful." "How much equity?" "We didn't get into specifics, but she said enough to make it worth her time, not enough to take control away from me." Sophia looked up from her math homework. "Is this about your app? Are you going to really do it?" Maya met her daughter's eyes, seeing excitement and hope reflected there. "I don't know yet, baby. It's complicated." "Why?" Sophia asked with the directness of children who haven't learned to dance around difficult subjects. "If the app is good and this lady can help you, what's complicated about that?" "Because—" Maya struggled to find words that would make sense to an 8-year-old. "Because when you let someone help you, you're also giving them power. And I've had enough of people having power over me." "Elena's not like the mean man from the restaurant. She helped you even though she didn't have to. That's different." From the mouths of babes, Maya looked at her mother, who'd returned to stirring rice, a small smile playing at her lips. "Your daughter is smarter than both of us. Maybe you should listen to her." That night, after Sophia had asleep and Rosa had retreated to her room, Maya opened her laptop and pulled up the business plan for Seamless Shift. She'd revised it 17 times over 2 years, refining projections, adjusting timelines, incorporating feedback from the few people who'd been willing to review it seriously. It was good work. She knew it was good work. But good work in a vacuum meant nothing. She thought about Sebastian Blackwood, sitting in his expensive office, making decisions that affected hundreds of lives, all from a position of unchallenged power. She thought about Gerald, firing her to protect his relationship with a man who saw human beings as resources to be optimized or discarded. She thought about the system that kept people like her trapped in cycles of poverty and near misses, while people like Sebastian accumulated wealth beyond any rational need or use. And she thought about Elena's words, "Don't let them make you small." Maya picked up her phone and typed out an email before she could talk herself out of it. "Dear Elena, I've thought about your offer, and I'd like to move forward. When can we meet to discuss next steps? Thank you for believing in someone you barely know. I won't waste your time or your faith. Best, Maya Rodriguez." She hit send and closed her laptop, heart racing like she'd just jumped off a cliff. Maybe she had, but at least she was moving instead of staying trapped in the same place, watching life happen to her instead of making it happen. The response came before Maya had even finished brushing her teeth. "Maya, excellent. How about Monday at 10 a.m.? My office in Midtown. Come prepared to discuss your vision in detail. Not just the technical aspects, but why this matters to you. Investors buy the founder as much as they buy the product. One more thing. Start thinking like a CEO instead of a waitress. That shift in mindset is the first step toward becoming one. Looking forward to Monday. Elena." Maya read the email 3 times, lingering on that phrase. Think like a CEO instead of a waitress. As if the two were mutually exclusive. As if everything she learned serving tables, reading people, managing competing priorities, staying calm under pressure, making 100 tiny decisions every shift, wasn't exactly the skill set required to run a business. But she understood what Elena meant. It wasn't about diminishing her experience. It was about reframing it, owning it as preparation instead of accepting society's judgment of it as limitation. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Maya revised her business plan again, incorporating current market data and refining financial projections. She practiced her pitch in front of Rosa and Sophia, who provided feedback with brutal honesty that proved more valuable than any business consultant could offer. "You keep apologizing," Sophia observed after Maya's third practice run. "You say, 'I think maybe this could work,' and 'it's possible this might be helpful.' Why do you do that?" "I don't want to sound arrogant," Maya admitted. "There's a difference between arrogant and confident. You're stating facts about your product. Facts don't need apologies. Try it again, but pretend you're Sebastian Blackwood telling someone how brilliant his company is." Maya bristled at the comparison. "I don't want to be anything like him." "You don't have to be cruel to be confident, but you do have to believe in your own worth, or no one else will believe in it either." Rosa crossed her arms. Again, from the top, and this time no apologies. By Sunday night, Maya could deliver her pitch without hedging, without softening, without the 1,000 tiny ways women were trained to make themselves smaller and more palatable. She recited market size, competitive advantages, revenue projections, and scaling potential with the certainty of someone who'd lived inside this problem long enough to understand its solutions intimately. Monday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of autumn day when the city felt almost manageable. Maya dressed carefully, the one good suit she owned, purchased for a cousin's wedding 3 years ago. It didn't quite fit right anymore. She had lost weight since then, stress-burning calories more efficiently than any gym. But it was professional, and that would have to be enough. Cornerstone Consulting occupied the 15th floor of a building near Grand Central. The office was smaller than Maya expected, but thoughtfully designed. Clean lines, abundant natural light, walls covered with photos of women who'd presumably been their clients. At the reception desk, a young woman with purple streaks in her hair greeted Maya warmly and directed her to a conference room. Elena was already there, along with 2 other women. The first looked to be in her late 50s, silver hair cut in a sharp bob, wearing a power suit that screamed Wall Street. The second was younger, maybe early 30s, with warm brown skin and intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything. "Maya, welcome," Elena gestured to the others. "This is Margaret Shen, our financial strategist, and Priya Sharma, who handles marketing and brand development. We've all reviewed your business plan and we have questions." The next 2 hours were the most intense of Maya's life. Margaret grilled her on financial projections with the precision of a prosecuting attorney. Priya challenged her marketing assumptions and asked pointed questions about target demographics. Elena focused on the bigger picture: scalability, competition, potential pivots if the initial strategy didn't gain traction. Maya answered every question, drawing on her years of restaurant experience and the research she'd compiled in stolen moments between shifts in parenting. She explained why existing scheduling software failed restaurants, too complex for small operations, too rigid for the industry's chaotic reality. She walked them through her user interface, demonstrating how intuitive design could solve problems that restaurant managers didn't even realize they had. Most scheduling software is designed by tech people who've never worked in restaurants. They think about efficiency in abstract terms, but I know exactly what it feels like to be scheduled for a double when you specifically requested that day off because your kid has a school play. I know what it's like to be the manager who has to find coverage when someone calls in sick at the last minute. This app solves real problems for real people, and that's why it'll work.
Margaret leaned back in her chair, studying Maya with an expression that gave nothing away. "Your technical implementation is solid for a prototype. Your understanding of the problem space is obviously personal and deep, but I'm concerned about your go-to-market strategy. The restaurant industry is notoriously resistant to change, and you're asking them to trust a brand new app from an unknown founder." "Which is why I'm here," Maya said. "I need help with credibility, with connections, with the 1,000 things I don't know because I've never done this before. But what I do know is that this solves a real problem, and if we can get just a few restaurants to try it, the results will speak for themselves." Priya made notes on her tablet, then looked up. "Tell me about your first customer, not hypothetically. Specifically, Who's the first restaurant that's going to use seamless shift, and why? Maya didn't hesitate. Stella's Kitchen in Brooklyn. The owner, Stella Martinez, has been trying to manage scheduling for her staff of 20 using a combination of text messages and a whiteboard. She's complained about it every time I've eaten there. She knows me, trusts me, and she's desperate for a solution. I've already talked to her about doing a pilot program once the app is ready. And what did she say? Elena asked. She said if I can make it work as well as I claim, she'll not only use it, but she'll convince 5 other restaurant owners she knows to try it too. Stella has credibility in the Brooklyn restaurant community. If she endorses seamless shift, others will listen. Margaret and Priya exchanged glances. Elena smiled. Here's what I'm thinking, Elena said. We take this to 3 angel investors I know who specifically focus on women-led startups. We ask for $75,000, more than your original $50, because we need budget for proper development, testing, and initial marketing. Margaret will help you refine the financials. Priya will work on branding and a pitch deck that tells your story in a way that makes investors see the opportunity. And I'll coach you on how to present yourself as the founder of a tech company, not a former waitress with an idea. How much equity are you asking for? Maya kept her voice steady, though her heart hammered against her ribs. 15%, split among the 3 of us, 5% each. Elena met her eyes directly. It's higher than you'd probably like, but lower than most consulting firms would charge for this level of involvement, and it's structured so you retain majority control and final decision-making authority. Maya did the math in her head. 85% ownership, assuming they didn't need to raise more money later, assuming the investors didn't demand their own equity, assuming any of this worked. But even if she ended up with 50%, that was 50% of something instead of 100% of nothing. I need to think about it, Maya said. Not because I don't trust you, but because this is the most important decision I've ever made, and I need to be sure. Fair enough, Elena said. Take 48 hours. If you're in, we start immediately. The investor meeting is scheduled for 3 weeks from today, which gives us just enough time to get you ready. Maya left the office in a daze, stumbling out into the midday Manhattan chaos. Her phone showed 6 missed calls, 3 from her mother, 2 from Sophia's school, 1 from an unknown number. Panic spiked through her as she dialed the school back, mind racing through 100 terrible possibilities. Miss Rodriguez? The school secretary's voice was calm, which immediately eased some of Maya's terror. Sophia is fine, but she got into an altercation with another student. We need you to come pick her up. An altercation? Sophia, who'd never been in trouble at school, who brought home perfect report cards and teacher's notes praising her behavior. Maya caught a cab she couldn't afford and made it to PS 175 in 15 minutes that felt like hours. Sophia sat in the principal's office, chin raised in defiance that reminded Maya painfully of her own mother. The other child, Marcus, the boy who'd pulled Sophia's hair, sat across from her with a split lip and tears running down his face. Both sets of parents had been called. What happened? Maya asked, sitting beside her daughter. Principal Watkins, a tired-looking woman who'd been teaching since Maya was a student, sighed. According to witnesses, Marcus was bothering Sophia during lunch, making fun of her for, she consulted her notes, for having a mom who got fired for being stupid. She asked him to stop. He didn't. She punched him in the face. Pride and horror warred in Maya's chest. Sophia! She wouldn't stop, Mom. Sophia's voice shook, but she didn't cry. He kept saying mean things about you, about how we're poor and you're dumb, and that's why you can't keep a job. I told him to stop 3 times, then I hit him. Marcus's mother, a woman in a real estate agent's blazer, glared at Maya. Your daughter assaulted my son. I should press charges. Your son was bullying her, Maya shot back. What was she supposed to do?
Use her words. Tell a teacher. Not resort to violence like some kind of... The woman cut herself off, but the unspoken word hung in the air anyway. Like some kind of what? Maya stood. and something in her expression made the other woman take a step back. "Say it. Finish your sentence." "Ladies, please," Principal Watkins held up her hands. "Fighting solves nothing. Sophia, violence is never the answer. No matter how hurt or angry you are, you'll serve detention this week, and you'll write an apology to Marcus." "I won't apologize," Sophia said quietly. "He should apologize to my mom." "Sophia," Maya began. "No, Mom, you're not stupid. You're the smartest person I know, and I'm not going to let anyone say mean things about you without defending you." Tears finally spilled down Sophia's cheeks. "You defend me all the time. Someone has to defend you, too." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She sank back into her chair, pulling Sophia close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her daughter's shampoo. 8 years old and already learning that the world was cruel to women who didn't have money or power or the right connections. 8 years old and already fighting battles that shouldn't be hers to fight. "We'll discuss her punishment at home," Maya told Principal Watkins, "but I need to know, where did Marcus hear these things? Did his parents talk about me? Is my situation being discussed among the parent community?" The principal looked uncomfortable. "I can't speak to what's said outside these walls, but I would encourage all our families to remember that children are listening and they repeat what they hear." Which wasn't an answer, but told Maya everything she needed to know. Sebastian Blackwood had humiliated her publicly. Gerald had spread the story with his bad reference, and now her daughter was fighting playground battles because some real estate agent had gossiped about the waitress who got fired for being slow. They walked home in silence, Sophia's hand small and warm in Maya's hand. At the apartment, Rosa took one look at their faces and started making hot chocolate without asking questions. "Am I in trouble?" "Yes," Maya said, "but probably not as much trouble as you think. Sit down. We need to talk about what happened." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd practiced Maya's pitch, where they'd eaten thousands of meals, where life's important conversations seemed to naturally occur. "I'm proud of you for defending me," Maya said carefully, "but I'm worried that you think violence is an appropriate response to words. You always say actions matter more than words. Marcus's actions were being mean. My action was making him stop. By hitting him. I asked him to stop 3 times first. That's more chances than most people give." Sophia wrapped her hands around her mug of hot chocolate. "Mom, are we poor?" The question landed like a grenade in the middle of the kitchen. Maya glanced at Rosa, who'd gone very still. "We're not rich," Maya said slowly, "but we have what we need. We have each other, and this home, and—" "Please don't lie to me," Sophia interrupted. "I know you're worried about money. I hear you and Abuela talking at night when you think I'm asleep. I know Abuela is sick and the medicine costs a lot. I know you got fired and you're trying to find a new job. I'm not a baby. You don't have to protect me from the truth." Maya felt something crack open in her chest. "You're right. I'm sorry. Yes, money is tight right now. Yes, I'm worried, but I'm working on making things better. Today, I had a meeting about my app, about maybe really making it happen. And if that works, if I can build something successful, then things will change. And if it doesn't work, then I'll find another way. I always do. But here's what I need you to understand, Sophia. People like Marcus's mom, they judge others based on money and status because they don't know any better. They think wealth makes you valuable and poverty makes you worthless. But that's not true. Your value comes from who you are, how you treat people, what you create in the world. And by that measure, you and Abuela and me, we're rich in all the ways that actually matter. Is that what you really believe? Or is that what you're telling me because you think it'll make me feel better?" Rosa laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Your daughter is definitely related to you, Maya. She doesn't let anyone get away with comfortable lies."
"It's what I really believe," Maya said, "but I'll admit that believing it doesn't always make it easier when people treat us like we're less than them because we have less money than them." Sophia nodded slowly. "Okay, but Mom,
When your app works and we do have money, promise me we won't become like those people. Promise we'll remember what it felt like to be treated badly and we'll be kind to everyone, no matter what." "I promise," Maya said, and meant it with everything she had. That night, after Sophia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Maya made her decision. She called Alina and left a voicemail accepting the partnership. Then she texted Stella Martinez, the Brooklyn restaurant owner, and asked if they could meet to discuss piloting Seamless Shift. The response came back within 5 minutes. "Yes! When can you start?" Maya looked around the apartment she'd shared with her mother and daughter for 5 years. The peeling paint and the crack in the ceiling and the radiator that clanged like a ghost in chains every winter morning. The home that had sheltered them through poverty and illness and every small disaster that tested their resilience. She thought about Sebastian Blackwood in his penthouse, probably not sparing a single thought for the waitress he'd destroyed. She thought about Gerald, protecting his business by sacrificing someone he'd worked alongside for 3 years. She thought about Marcus's mother and all the people who confused net worth with human value. And she thought about Sophia, 8 years old and already learning to fight, already understanding that the world wasn't fair, but that didn't mean you stopped trying to change it. Maya opened her laptop and started working. The 3 weeks before the investor meeting passed in a blur of 18-hour days and dreams haunted by pitch decks. If you're still with me and want to see how this story ends, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs inspiration today. Your support means everything. Now let's continue. Maya worked with Margaret to refine financial projections until the numbers told a story compelling enough to justify risk. She collaborated with Priya on branding. The name stayed Seamless Shift, but now it came with a logo that suggested both movement and stability, efficiency and human touch. And she met with Alina twice a week for coaching sessions that felt more like therapy, unpacking years of internalized doubt and rebuilding Maya's self-concept from waitress to founder. "Stop saying just," Alina instructed during their 4th session. "You don't just have an idea. You have a comprehensive solution to a multi-billion-dollar problem. You're not just a waitress. You're someone with 7 years of direct industry experience. Every time you diminish yourself linguistically, you give investors permission to diminish you." Maya practiced in front of mirrors, in front of Rosa and Sophia, in front of Marcus, who'd started stopping by the apartment after his shifts at Vesper and Pine to provide moral support and insider intelligence about the restaurant industry's pain points. She practiced until the words felt natural, until she could talk about market penetration and user acquisition without her voice shaking, until she believed, really believed, that she belonged in rooms with people who controlled millions of dollars. The pilot program at Stella's Kitchen launched 2 weeks before the investor meeting. Maya had used her last $1,000 from savings to hire a developer recommended by Alina, a brilliant woman named Jin, who worked nights and weekends to polish the app into something professional. The beta version wasn't perfect, but it worked. Stella integrated Seamless Shift on a Monday morning. By Friday, she'd texted Maya 6 times with variations of, "Where has this been my whole life?" The app had automatically created the next month's schedule based on availability, predicted busy periods using historical data, and sent polite notifications to staff about their shifts. What used to take Stella 4 hours now took 15 minutes. "I have 5 restaurant owner friends who need to see this. When can you do a demo?" Stella said when Maya visited her kitchen. Maya scheduled the demo for the day after the investor meeting. Either she had funding to properly scale, or she'd have to figure out how to bootstrap growth with whatever money the app generated organically. Both scenarios were better than where she'd been a month ago. Unemployed, defeated, watching her daughter fight playground battles because some billionaire had decided she moved too slowly through the world. She'd found part-time work at a boutique hotel restaurant, not enough to cover all their expenses, but enough to keep them afloat. The manager there, a woman named Patricia, who'd built her career from dishwasher to executive chef, had hired Maya despite Gerald's bad reference because "I trust my instincts more than I trust men who've never had to fight for anything." The investor meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. in Elena's conference room. 3 angel investors, all women who'd made their fortunes in tech and finance and now spent their time helping other women climb ladders they had had to build themselves. Maya wore her interview suit, altered by her mother's skilled hands to fit properly. Rosa had insisted on adding a thin red thread to the hem, For luck and courage, he'd said, and Maya had let her, needing all the magic she could get.
Elena had briefed her extensively on each investor. Jennifer Wu had sold her cybersecurity startup for $80 million 5 years ago, and now ran an angel fund focused on women in tech. Aisha Mohammed had spent 20 years in investment banking before starting her own firm dedicated to closing the funding gap for minority entrepreneurs. And Diane Kreutzberg had inherited wealth, felt guilty about it, and channeled that guilt into smart investments that actually changed lives. "They're going to push you," Elena warned the night before. "They'll ask hard questions designed to see if you crack under pressure. Don't take it personally. They do this with everyone." Maya barely slept that night, running through her pitch in her mind until the words lost all meaning and became just sounds. At dawn, she gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen, where Rosa was already making coffee despite the early hour. "Couldn't sleep either?" Maya asked. "I've been thinking about your father." Rosa poured 2 cups, adding the excessive sugar that Maya pretended to judge, but secretly loved. When Raphael decided he wanted to open a restaurant, everyone told him it was impossible. His parents, his friends, even me at first. We didn't have money, we didn't have connections, we had dreams and determination and nothing else. But he kept trying anyway. He kept trying because he understood something that took me years to learn. The people who tell you your dreams are impossible are usually the people who gave up on their own dreams. They're not trying to protect you. They're trying to protect themselves from the painful reminder of their own surrender. Rosa set her cup down with deliberate care. "Today, you walk into that room as Raphael's daughter, as my daughter, as Sophia's mother. You carry all of us with you. And you tell those women your truth with the certainty of someone who knows exactly what she's worth." Maya hugged her mother tightly, breathing in the floral scent of the lotion Rosa used to combat the dryness from chemotherapy. "Thank you for believing in me." "I don't believe in you, Mija. I know you. There's a difference." The day crawled forward with agonizing slowness. Maya dropped Sophia at school, worked a brief morning shift at the hotel restaurant, and then took the subway to Midtown. She arrived at Cornerstone an hour early, too nervous to be anywhere else. Priya met her in the lobby and took her to a small office to review the pitch deck one final time. "You're going to do great," Priya said, with the kind of confidence that Maya couldn't quite access in herself. "Remember, they're not doing you a favor by listening. You are offering them an opportunity to be part of something transformative. You're the prize here, not them." At 1:55 p.m., Margaret appeared at the door. "They're ready." The conference room felt different than it had during Maya's first visit. Now it was set up for performance. 3 investors on one side of the table, Maya on the other with her laptop connected to the large screen behind her. Elena sat to the side, there for support, but deliberately not speaking unless directly addressed. This was Maya's show. The 3 women who held Maya's immediate future in their perfectly manicured hands looked exactly as Elena had described them. Jennifer Wu, sharp and assessing in designer glasses that probably cost more than Maya's rent. Aisha Mohammed, warm but penetrating, the kind of person who saw through bullshit with surgical precision. And Diane Kreutzberg, younger than Maya expected, dressed in casual elegance that suggested wealth so deep it didn't need to perform. "Ms. Rodriguez," Jennifer began, "we reviewed your materials. Tell us why we should invest $75,000 in an app that targets one of the lowest margin industries in existence." No pleasantries, no warm-up, straight to the jugular. Maya had been warned, but it still felt like being thrown into cold water without warning. She took a breath, centered herself, and began. "Because restaurants operate on thin margins precisely because they waste money on inefficiency. The average restaurant loses $35,000 annually on scheduling mistakes, overstaffed slow nights, understaffed busy ones, overtime costs from last-minute coverage, turnover from employees who quit because their work-life balance is destroyed by chaotic scheduling. Seamless Shift solves this problem so elegantly that it pays for itself within 3 months. And because there are 660,000 restaurants in the United States alone, A 1% capture of that market represents 6,600 customers. At $200 per month subscription, that's $15 million in annual recurring revenue. She clicked to the next slide, showing Stella's Kitchen's data for the past 2 weeks. This is our pilot program. In 14 days, the restaurant saved 22 hours of manager time and reduced overtime costs by 40%. The staff satisfaction survey I conducted showed a 35% improvement in schedule happiness. And this is with a beta version of the app. Imagine what we can do with proper development and resources. Aisha leant forward, studying the charts. Your numbers are impressive for a pilot, but 14 days is barely a data point. How do you know this success is replicable across different restaurant types and sizes?
Because the fundamental problem is universal, Maya said. I've worked in fine dining, casual chains, hotel restaurants, and corporate cafeterias over 7 years. The specific challenges vary, but the core issue is the same. Restaurant scheduling is complex, human-dependent, and error-prone. Seamless Shift leverages AI to learn patterns specific to each establishment while maintaining flexibility for the chaos that defines restaurant work. It's smart enough to be powerful, but simple enough that a busy manager can learn it in 20 minutes. Diane spoke for the first time, her voice softer than the others, but no less probing. Walk us through your go-to-market strategy. How do you plan to acquire customers beyond your personal network? Maya had prepared for this question, had war-gamed it with Elena and Priya until she could recite the strategy in her sleep. Phase 1 is what I call trusted expansion. Stella has already connected me with 5 other Brooklyn restaurant owners. Each successful implementation generates referrals within tight-knit restaurant communities. Phase 2 targets restaurant associations and industry conferences where owners gather to share best practices. Phase 3 involves strategic partnerships with point-of-sale systems and restaurant management platforms, integrating Seamless Shift as a premium add-on feature. Jennifer made a note on her tablet. Your background is unusual for a tech founder. No engineering degree, no MBA, no previous startup experience. Why should we trust you to execute on this vision when you've never built a company before? This was the question Maya had been dreading and preparing for in equal measure. The question that reduced her to her resume instead of her capabilities. The question that reinforced every gate the wealthy built to keep people like her outside. But Elena had coached her through this exact moment. They're not asking you to apologize for who you are. They're asking you to reframe your experience as an asset. Maya met Jennifer's gaze directly. You're right, I don't have traditional founder credentials. What I have is 7 years of living inside the problem I'm solving. I understand restaurant operations with the intimacy of someone who's worked every position from hostess to server to informal manager. I know exactly where the pain points are because I've experienced them firsthand. And while I may not have an MBA, I've spent 2 years teaching myself everything from financial modeling to user experience design to fundraising strategy. I'm not asking you to trust my pedigree. I'm asking you to trust my demonstrated ability to identify a real problem, build a working solution, and execute on a plan with limited resources. She clicked to the final slide, a photo of Sophia at the kitchen table, surrounded by homework and drawings of buildings that touched imaginary clouds. This is my daughter, Sophia. She's 8 years old and she believes I can do anything. 3 weeks ago, I got fired from my restaurant job by a billionaire who decided I moved too slowly. He thought he was ending my story. Instead, he gave me the push I needed to finally bet on myself. I'm building Seamless Shift not just because it's a good business opportunity, but because I refuse to let people like him define what's possible for people like me. You can invest in my app, or you can watch someone else fund it 6 months from now when I've proven the concept beyond any doubt. Either way, Seamless Shift is happening. I'm just offering you the chance to be part of it from the beginning. The room fell silent. Maya's heart hammered so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. She'd just told 3 wealthy investors they could take her offer or leave it, had positioned herself as the prize rather than the supplicant, had gambled everything on the belief that confidence mattered more than desperation. Aisha smiled slowly. Miss Rodriguez, I think we have everything we need. We'll discuss among ourselves and be in touch within 48 hours. Maya gathered her materials with shaking hands and left the conference room. In the hallway, Elena squeezed her shoulder. "You did beautifully. Now we wait." The 48 hours felt like 48 years. Maya worked her hotel shifts, helped Sophia with homework, sat with Rosa during a chemotherapy appointment that left her mother too weak to stand. She checked her phone compulsively, jumping at every notification that turned out to be spam or social media alerts. On Saturday morning, exactly 47 hours and 32 minutes after the investor meeting, Elena called. "They're in," she said without preamble. "All three. $75,000 at a pre-money valuation that gives you 70% ownership after their equity and ours. Maya, you did it. You're funded." Maya sat down on the floor of her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, and finally let herself cry. Not from defeat this time, but from the overwhelming relief of a door opening after years of throwing herself against walls. Sophia found her there 10 minutes later and wrapped small arms around her mother's neck. "Happy tears?" Sophia asked. "Happy tears," Maya confirmed. "We're going to be okay, baby. We're going to be more than okay." The investor's money hit Maya's new business account within a week. She hired Jin full-time to develop the professional version of Seamless Shift. She brought on a customer success manager to handle the growing interest from Stella's restaurant network. She rented a small office in Brooklyn, nothing fancy, but a space that wasn't her kitchen table, a space that said, "This is real, this matters, this is happening." 6 months after Sebastian Blackwood had fired her for moving too slowly, Maya Rodriguez stood in front of 50 restaurant owners at an industry conference demonstrating Seamless Shift to an audience that actually paid attention. Her act had 23 paying customers, recurring revenue that would hit 7 figures within the year, and a wait list of restaurants eager to try the solution. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows and white tablecloths, a man who'd forgotten her name was probably snapping his fingers at another server, never realizing that the woman he'd dismissed had just disrupted the industry he thought he understood. Maya thought about him sometimes, but less as time passed. Revenge, she'd learned, wasn't about confrontation. It was about building something so undeniable that his dismissal became irrelevant. She was no longer invisible, and that, Maya decided, was victory enough.